Hello and welcome to the table. I'm your host, Teen Wolf, and today we're going to be talking about the more complicated parts of Star Wars Unlimited, starting off by talking about the keywords in Star Wars Unlimited. The first one being ambush, which is a very powerful one, and the most powerful one in my opinion. But on Syndicate Lackeys, for example, which is a 5/4 with ambush, Syndicate Lackeys would come into play ready, untapped, and can immediately attack an enemy unit. In the same arena, then we have Grit, which isn't as powerful, but on Scout Bike Pursuer, which is a 1/4 with Grit, for each damage on the Scout Bike Pursuer, it's going to get +1 power. So if a Death Star Stormtrooper runs into it and it dies, but deals 3 damage to the Scout Bike Pursuer, well, it's still at 1 health, but it has 3 damage on it. So now, instead of being a 1/4, it's a 4/1, which is very powerful, not gonna lie. Then we have Overwhelm, which effectively means any leftover damage dealt to a unit is then dealt to that unit's controller's base. So let's say a TST, a 6/7 with Overwhelm, runs into a Death Star Stormtrooper, and there's still 5 damage lying around. Well, where's that 5 damage going to go? Most of the time it just disappears. But with Overwhelm, that leftover damage goes straight to the base, and that's pretty dang powerful, not going to lie. But then we have Raid, which means whenever a unit with Raid attacks, it gets +X power, where X is the Raid number. Which, let me explain. There's this card called Cantina Bagart, which is a 0/3 with Raid 2. So when it goes to attack, it's going to get +2 power for that attack, which is very powerful. But one thing that I do gotta mention is when it's defending, so if it's getting attacked by another unit, it's not going to trigger Raid because it's defending and not technically attacking. Which this also matters for another keyword, the next keyword that I'm going to be talking about, Restore. Which means when this unit attacks, you heal X damage from your base, where X is the restore number. So once again, Restored Arc 170, which is a 2/3, has Restore 1. So whenever it goes to attack, you heal 1 damage from your base. But if it's getting attacked by another thing and it's defending that attack, it is not attacking, and Restore will not trigger. So I just gotta make that note for you really quick. Then there's Sentinel, which is very annoying and an extra layer of defensive value that units can have sometimes. For example, on Corellian Freighter, it's a 4/4 with Sentinel, and in draft, it's very hard to get around because units in the same arena as this card with Sentinel cannot attack your base or your non-Sentinel units. So if you want to get to any of my other stuff, you're going to get taunted by this stupid Sentinel thing, and you're going to have to kill it first. But don't you worry, there is a way to get around Sentinel, that being Saboteur, which allows units with Saboteur to attack past units with Sentinel and destroy any of the Defender's shields. So if it's attacking a Defender with a shield on it, all those shields are going to go away. Well, what's a shield? I'll explain that here in a second. Then we have the last keyword, Shielded, which also cares about shields, and when a unit with Shielded enters the arena, it enters with a shield on it. Well, what's a shield token? Well, I just said token. Let's talk about the tokens. The tokens, there are only 2 of them, but they're both very good. And the first one, and more powerful one, being a shield token, which if a unit with a shield token on it is dealt any amount of damage, you instead destroy a shield token on it and prevent all of that damage. So it's kind of like a one-time barrier. It's like, you gotta get through this, and then you can deal damage to this unit, and the shield won't absorb it. It's very annoying. And oh, by the way, it can stack. So you can have 2 shields on a thing at a time, and you gotta get it through 1 shield, then you gotta get through another shield, and then that unit can take damage. It's very annoying and very powerful. But then there's experience tokens, which simply give a thing +1/+1. And once again, it can stack, so if there are 2 experience on a thing, it gets +2/+2. +2 health and +2 power. Then we have traits, which don't really matter too much, but when they come up, you do kind of need to know what's going on. For example, on General Veers, it says each other Imperial unit, friendly Imperial unit, gets +1/+1, +1 power, +1 health. Well, what's an Imperial unit? Well, you see on a card, there's this little rectangular box below the art of a card if we're talking about units, above the art if we're talking about like events. And this kind of has these little keywords. Like, for example, on Kanan Jarrus, Jedi, Reveal a Jedi, it says Force and Spectre. But on Death Star Stormtrooper, it says Imperial and Trooper. Well, what are those? Those are traits. They're like extra parts of the card. So Kanan Jarrus revealed Jedi, which is a Force unit and a Spectre unit. Or on Death Star Stormtrooper, it's a Imperial unit and a Trooper unit. So anything that cares about those keywords will matter for these cards. So General Veers is going to give the Death Star Stormtrooper +1/+1, and Hera is going to care about Kanan Jarrus revealed Jedi because he's a Spectre. But there's also another thing that doesn't come up too much, but when it does, you need to know: friendly and enemy units. So General Veers was talking about friendly Imperial units. Well, what are those? Friendly simply means units that you control. A friendly unit is a unit that you control, and an enemy unit is a unit that an opponent controls. It's very simple, but I just want to get that note out there. Then there are unique cards, which if you've ever played Magic the Gathering, you know about legendary creatures. Which a legendary creature, you can only have one copy of it out on the board at a time, but if you have two out, well then you have to sacrifice one of them. This is true in Star Wars Unlimited as well. A unique unit, because it's like this one famous character in Star Wars. There aren't two of them, there's one of them. So you can't have two of them out on the board at the same time, so that's where unique comes into play. For example, Yoda, if you have one Yoda out on the board, and you play another Yoda, you gotta get rid of one of them. But if you have Yoda and a Kanan Jarrus out, you don't have to get rid of one of them because they're different unique units. But if you ever get a second copy of one of them on the board, you have to get rid of one of them. And how do you tell if a thing's unique or not? Well, on top of a card, it says the name of it. Like Yoda, for example, in bold. But then if you look to the left of it, there's this little diamond-shaped looking thing. That is how you tell if a unit is unique. Then lastly, this doesn't come up too much, so I didn't talk about it in my last video, but it is something very important to know, and that's what happens if you have no cards left in your deck. In Magic the Gathering, you just die. In Flesh and Blood, the game continues, and you just have nothing left in your deck. Well, Star Wars Unlimited is different than both of these. And why is that? Well, whenever you go to draw a card in a deck with no cards left in it, your base takes 3 damage for each card that you would have drawn this way. So let's say you go to the regroup phase, you have no cards left in your deck, but you still have to draw 2 cards. Well, instead of just dying, like you would in Magic, or continue on in the game like in Flesh and Blood, you take 6 damage. So this doesn't come up too much because the games are pretty quick in Star Wars Unlimited, but if it does, the games are going to end pretty quickly because you're going to be taking a lot of damage very quickly. So anyways, with all that aside, that's all the complicated parts of Star Wars Unlimited. Now you know everything that you need to know to play a game of Star Wars Unlimited. So go out there, buy some boxes. This game's incredible and fun. So go build decks and enjoy this absolutely wonderful game. Enjoy.